So, in order for the children to go out, we have to be prepared, but we also have to help them consider a variety of components as well. First, they need to have a reason to go out, and we have to give them the idea that they could go out. So, when they're researching lion tamarins, maybe we want to tell them they could plan a trip to the zoo to visit. So, we want to be sure that they've got a reason and that they've got a strong purpose, like they're trying to find answers to questions or they want to observe something. And we have to help sort of nurture that as they're exploring and as they're learning. And once they have this reason, then they need to know the sort of places they could go. So I always had a folder on a shelf, on a going out shelf, where I had collected brochures from a variety of different, institutions that the children could visit. This is really helpful just to help them, get a sense of what is possible and what is out there. They don't always know. Also, to support this, I really encourage that you visit all the institutions in your area so that you know the different things that are available. And often prior to exhibits or openings of plays, many institutions have an educator evening or something that you could attend. So get on all those mailing lists so that you know what events and what exhibits are going on so that you can bring that to the children. So once the children have determined sort of what they need, why they're going, and where they're going, then they need to have support in, think about all the other aspects. They need to find a chaperone. What is the process for doing that? And how do they ask a chaperone to join them? Because we have to, they can't just presume, even if it is a staff member, that those staff members are at their beck and call. So you want them to know how to ask politely or write a lovely note for a request. I've been a chaperone for my kids' schools in the past, not even for their going outs. And I love the phone calls I would get where, you can tell they've practiced a script or they're reading a script as they're trying to ask so politely if you're available. So that's the kind of experience we want to give them, building in some grace and courtesy as they ask for this favor. And of course, they need to know that the school is going to pay for the cost of the adult or any other things like that. Then, the children need to determine the transportation as well. Are they taking the school van or are they taking public transportation? What are the costs involved in that? They need to be able to map. If it's by car, they need to map their path there. I always had a laminated city map in the classroom they could actually draw in with a dry erase marker. I really want them to get a sense of maps, not just have Google figure the directions out for them. So we would use a physical map. Or if they're taking city transportation of some sort, bus or a train, where's the station? Where do they have to walk after that? A bus, to take home, you often have to cross the street from where you got off. All of those aspects we have to help the children consider as they're planning their transportation. We also have to help the children consider the paperwork they need and how do they get the money? Do they ask the office? Do they have to submit a request in writing? I always had children write a letter to their parents explaining the reason they were going out when they asked for the permission slip. All of these sorts of things need to be in place, and you need to guide the children through how to do these different procedures. Then when they come back from the trip, you need to have some procedures in place for how they write thank you notes for anyone involved. So this would be the chaperone, any museum docent or someone that gave them some particular help or assistance. So thank you notes have to be written, and perhaps the children have a verbal or written reflection on the experience, if that's a part of your school culture, or at the very least, they take this back to whatever research they were doing and put in the answers to their questions. But in some way, shape, or form, you should have some way that you're sort of closing the experience for them upon their return and reflecting. And I always love to hear, how they thought things went, or when they encountered some troubles, and we could process that as well if they needed to do that. So that's an important component after they come back from the trip. Now, there's a lot of things to consider while they're on the trip that we want to try to prepare them for, and we'll talk about that in the next video.